Ka'aina, and welcome to Voices of Truth One-on-One with Hawaii's Future, brought to you by the Kiwani Foundation. I'm Ehuke Kahu Cardwell, and here we are today out on the west side of Oahu, and I'll tell you right now, we have a fascinating guest on the show, so let's go on over here and meet him. Micah, aloha.
Hello.
How are you? Micah Doane, did I say your name right?
Yes, you did.
Wonderful.
For having me.
And Micah, tell us where we are today. This is gorgeous here.
Yeah, it's a beautiful day here. Today we are currently located at Kea'au, the beginning of Kea'au, right after Makaha Beach, which would be like kind of the beginning of the undeveloped area on this portion of this coastline.
There's a reason why you're here today, and the reason why is actually written on your shirt, Hawaii Protectors of Paradise. That's what you head up, yes?
Yeah, well, we, all throughout our life, we ended up being raised down here at the beaches, and as we got older, definitely a lover of the waves and the ocean. These are my favorite areas to come and bodyboard, from Kea'au all the way down to Ke'awauʻula, and just because there was no crowds and stuff really. And then social media started kind of coming about and putting more attention on these areas and kind of putting them on the map. So places that were kind of remote and hardly visited before were now being, there was a lot of visitors coming down. So we started noticing the difference and the changes and the impact of visitors. A lot of the activities that were taking place, some of them were not so pono, people disrespecting cultural sites, harassing the wildlife, leaving their trash and feces after a weekend. So basically after a weekend, it would look kind of like a landfill or dump site in these beautiful sacred areas, and it would come to a point where you could just walk through the beach and it would just smell like human feces all over the place where you would go. So we decided to, I ranted and raved about it at home, and my wife said, you got to do something about this rather than just complaining. So put our heads together and talk story with some of the fellow watermen out here, and they said, maybe the best idea is start a group, where we could, help do cleanups, give education, spread awareness. Growing up, being a lineal descendant of Makua, and my grandmother taking us down there when we were young kids, and her brother Ivanhoe Naivi, who was a very passionate historian on that area. He did a lot of work during his lifetime in trying to, I guess, correct some of the mistakes that were made in the past from them being evicted during the war and everything that happened out there with the military, and just it never really did get its justice, since then. Because like I said, the beauty of these places, it's natural and kind of untouched, but being at this state is kind of not so much of a priority in terms of there's no trash pickup or those types of usual services that are provided elsewhere.
Nobody was doing that out here.
For years there were different individuals, people, families would come in Malama, the area. I know Malama Makua was doing a lot of work behind the gates with the military and helping stop that bombing. And for years, Nakamakai, which is run by Doane DeSoto, would do their annual cleanups with sustainable coastlines in Makua area, and then they would pull out hundreds of thousands of pounds of illegal dumping and trash. And so a lot of times these areas that are kind of hidden are used for companies as well to dump their construction debris or whatever it may be. There's engine parts, cars, anything you can think of that can be dumped is dumped out here. From animals to people and whatnot.
Dead animals.
Yeah. Oh, I mean even live animals.
Really?
You get a lot of people dumping puppies, dogs, unwanted dogs out here. And so there's just a lot of kind of harmful activity that goes on, where we noticed in 2016 where it was just completely out of control, where you had sometimes it would look like a scene out of Mad Max, people driving all over the beach, bonfires, huge raves and whatnot. And so we decided to get together and not just complain and and do something. And so we would have cleanups, do education, work with Noah to do outreach on the dolphins and whatnot. And as I started, doing more work and learning more about these areas, I started coming across my Uncle Ivanhoe's notes, and started reading them about the history of these areas. My wife, when I met her, I'd bring her to this location. It was a very, I don't know, it just grabbed her. I guess it was so isolated, there was nobody. She'd come and have the beach to herself sometimes. And there were people living here, but nobody would really bother. So she fell in love with this area. And so, we said it didn't feel right to focus so much attention on Makua, which it needed, but passing by here every time and seeing this area being a complete dump site and landfill from, millions of pounds of trash have been removed from here, hundreds of derelict vehicles. And so we just started doing more and more cleanups from Kea'au, which was on the city side, and then Makua area, which was the state. And that was the hard part, right? Because the two jurisdictions are kind of hot potato, is what they like to play. And so I started looking at more and more at my uncle's notes and realizing the significance of this area as well. This area along this mountainside and over here is actually, there was an archaeological study that was done from Ohikilolo and the Kea'au area, and a high percentage, I think like 75% of the artifacts were found in the Kea'au ahupua'a, which date back to some ancient prehistoric times.
Pre-contact times.
Yeah, from the first people, some of the first people on this island, had settled here, and then they had their, their hails, their sweet potato, mounds and whatever back here. And a lot of different archaeological sites along the coastline as well. And I was thinking, gosh, like, nobody bats an eye. Makua gets a lot of attention a lot of time, which is good, but Kea'au gets passed by a lot of the times. And I was thinking it's kind of sad to see the history where these areas actually hold the the tools of how our first people survived on an area which was so desolate and so not easy for farming or cultivating or whatnot. They had to rely on being really in tune with Mother Nature. And to me, that was an example of what a true Hawaiian was, a person that was gonna just have to survive by being completely in tune, not putting their needs before the Aina's needs, but having it harmoniously work. And I got really inspired thinking that this is what it meant to be a Hawaiian, right? He ali'i ka aina he kawa ke kanaka. This beach, unfortunately, suffers from a lot of off-roading, a lot of illegal dumping. If we look back to history and the way our ancestors dealt with things, they had very strict kapu system, much more strict than we have today. But it was for a reason. It was for sustainability. It wasn't to, step on anyone's toes, but it was just to keep things the way we see them beautiful today. And if they weren't able to do that, then who knows what these areas would look like.
Yes.
And so all we can do at this point in our generation, as a bridge to the next generation, is try to do our part and spread the word.
There was a very vibrant community out here, hundreds and thousands of years ago that lived here.
Yeah, what I take from the community that was out here was that when this area wasn't necessarily suitable for wide-scale farming and agriculture.
Sure.
Very desolate, dry. A lot of the sustenance came from the ocean. But to me, it was an example of that pure connection that the Hawaiians, the early Hawaiians had with the Aina, where it was definitely their chief and their master, and they had to just conform themselves and their lifestyles to survive, and then to also, live in balance. And so I use that as kind of an example, like, when we get kind of sidetracked with all the distractions in modern day society, just finding those roots, the fundamentals, right? Just, hey, malama ka aina from the, put yourself aside. And that's one thing I've had to learn to do throughout this process is that malama ka'aina is definitely a situation where you kind of omit yourself from the equation in terms of any type of benefit or getting any benefit. You have to kind of like, to me, submit completely to the aina and what we're trying to do. And aina is not just the land, it's also the community. Mm-hmm. But
well, malama ka'aina means caring for the land, which infers putting the land first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
wow.
So, not saying to not take care of oneself, because if you don't do that, you're no good to anyone.
Right.
But just having that humility to realizing that to disconnect from that kind of Western mentality where you own something by paper or by ranking or anything, but basically in the Hawaiian word kuleana meant all that in one. Responsibility, privilege, obligation, ownership. And if you're responsible for something, then that itself was ownership, and that's all you needed.
How long has Hawaii Protectors of Paradise been around?
So before I would just be kind of just doing random cleanups if I would see piles, left, and then we started to get together with a group of like local watermen, surfers, body surfers, lifeguards, and we formed a group in 2016 in which we officially became a 501c3.
A nonprofit.
A nonprofit where we contracted with the state to become park curators for Kaena Point State Park, Makua and Keawaula section, and just helped out with a lot of the maintenance, cleanups, education, and basic steward of the area. And then for this area of Ke'ao and Huikilolo, we've kind of worked with the city to try to come up with solutions from, basically Ke'ao to Makua Cave, where the two jurisdictions separate. This area where we're looking at, it would be famous for illegal dumping, piles of tires, burned vehicles. You can remove 6 vehicles from here and 50,000 pounds of trash. And then somebody would post that night, 6 more vehicles dumped right back.
So it never ends, does it?
It never ends.
Do you ever get discouraged about that?
Oh, discouraged, I think, would be putting it lightly, It's frustrating because you see, to me, a lot of the hands that go into healing the aina, and a lot of them being young kids, children even come out with their families, and I see them in this sometimes filth, and I just feel guilty myself, like that a child has to take this on. And then you see all that work, everyone coming together, and then the place looks immaculate after, the way it should be, with the kupuna smiling down, from the heavens. And then, within a few hours, just to disconnect and, just people not really thinking about things, the place can be right back and trashed again. What we see a lot of is businesses dumping, contract, materials and whatnot. And
really, people who should know better.
Yeah, and it's just like, I'm not sure, what if there's cost behind dumping certain things that is stopping people from getting rid of them in the correct area, but a lot of it ends up here. Like, you can have a pile of 50 tires, one day, just piled up. And so for years, we were working with the houseless community out here, knowing that people, if you don't have anywhere to go, how can we help you at least take care of the area that you are staying? And a lot of people were very helpful in those communities in, cleanups, as well as being our eyes out here, taking pictures, shooing people away that are coming in with flatbed trucks and dumping material and whatnot. So those few individuals in those communities we're very thankful for too.
Micah, do you think this cycle can be broken at all? The cycle of you guys clean up, they dump more, you guys clean up, they dump more.
I believe it can. Patience is one thing that we've definitely had to learn, and where Rome wasn't built in a day. And
yes,
it definitely takes time. And sometimes when you see the heva that's happening at the rate it's happening, you don't understand why things can't happen immediately, which they should. But I think opportunities like this and just getting the word out social media can be a double-edged sword, right? But if the word can get out on things that are going on and in the direction we can move into a positive one and taking care of the aina, just awareness. I think a lot of the younger generations are starting to see more and more, on social media or whatever, that there are a lot of issues going on besides what they just see on their screen happening elsewhere in the mainland. But we'll always try to tell the kids that a lot of times you get enticed by the glitz and glamour of what's happening elsewhere, where your very backyard, where you have the access to every single day for free, is what people were willing to spend millions and billions for.
Yeah. This is the glitz and glamour.
And we
right
have
here.
the jewels right here.
Yep.
At our fingertips. And just anytime you go to the beach, we grew up with a very strict father where he always said, don't wait to be told to do something, and if you walk by something, pick it up, even if you know it's not yours.
Micah, what would you like for this place to be like and look like in the future?
I feel like the beauty and the blueprint is already here, just the way it is, and that's what makes this area so beautiful, is its naturalness and the state it's in, just not having to do much, just removing all the rubbish and harmful activities that are taking place, that are hurting, from the mountain to the ocean, whether it be the dumping, the trashing, the people trampling over cultural sites, the fishing, people are bombing reefs with Clorox, people are doing harmful fishing practices. So I guess our vision would just to be to see the land stay in the state that it's in, but improve it by just keeping the trash away, keeping the hewa away. During COVID, Keʻawauʻula was allowed to rest for about a year. The place was able to replenish itself naturally. Sand that was turned black from years of beach driving turned back to that beautiful white again. A lot of the fishermen were stating how the fish populations were coming back and thriving again. So just finding ways to create a balance without, hurting people's lifestyles and their traditions of coming to these places and fishing or just camping on how they used to, but being able to create a system that doesn't allow all the damaging effects to take place. So that way, this coastline was predominantly fishing, especially these remote areas.
Yes.
And so it'd be kind of shameful in 20 years from now for there to be, not as,
Fished out.
Yeah.
Micah, if somebody came up to you, maybe somebody from, I don't know, Vermont or Spain or Japan or wherever, and they said, hey, we just drove by this place and we just thought we'd stop because we saw you. What is this place all about? What would you say to them?
So basically, that's things we've had experienced in the years where tourists will come down, and from this point to Keʻawauʻula, there'll be just trash on the side of the road. And for them, they didn't get that accurate picture of what this place was all about. It basically just looked like a dump. So I stop, and even if there's people, tourists near a cave, I'll go and stop, and I'll try to give them just a brief story if they have time. I don't want to impose on them, but I say, if you have time for a mo'olelo, I can share with you about this location. And what it does is it helps connect them to the area. It helps them create a appreciation for where they are, regardless of what they see, the land and ocean being treated. But we feel like the same, like you mentioned the history before with our own people. I think it's important as well with visitors to know where they're coming. If they're trespassing on an area that used to be an ancient burial site, it's good to know. I said you don't want that kind of energy to be around you, and a lot of people are receptive. There's a lot of people that aren't receptive, but at the end of the day, they're still going home with the knowledge.
What is the gift to the world that this place is?
I think the gift is, I think the beauty of the gift was just straight harmony and love. This is from my perspective of Hawaii, between the land and people with one another. And of course, Keakua being first, but just that harmonious, selfless, considerate community of, I'm gonna take care of you, we take care of each other, we're gonna take care of our creation. So it's like being pono with oneself, being pono with your fellow man, and then being pono with the universe, to me would hopefully create, this platform in which I feel like was happening. And every picture it has its bad sides, But if we look at what's before us today, just the natural, beautiful landscapes, Hawaii being home to how many different ecosystems, right? When you have only 13 in the row, like the Big Island, and so I think it's an example of the beauty that God can create through the earth, and as well as people to walk that earth in harmony with each other and the land. And that just, to me, it seemed like heaven on earth, right? And a lot of these places, the old timers would refer to God's country, because just the way it was perfect.
Yeah.
And picturesque.
It all used to look like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So from Waimanalo to Kaena is all God's country. I've heard old timers use. So
yeah. Yeah. Micah, what has been the single biggest aspect of doing your Protectors of Paradise work out here that has enriched your life the most?
I think it's taught me patience. It's taught me to harness a lot of emotion in terms of when things seem to be going out of control and you don't seem to have the end in sight or a solution in sight, to just try to continue to have faith in whatever it is you believe in. Just to have faith that no matter how hard life can be, that there's a reason. Look within yourself to see what you're here for. Everybody has a passion deep inside of them. I think it's just a matter of finding that and never giving up on it. And it hasn't been easy, but this work has definitely molded me through all the tribulations and all the relationships and people that I've met and things that I've taught to just better myself as a person, where I'm healing the land and myself at the same time.
It's very clear to me that the ancestors are still here. They're still here. Those that lived hundreds of years ago here, or thousands of years ago here, and they're waiting to give us the lessons that they learned if we just listen.
Oh, they're here, and that's the thing. I get a little teary-eyed because when you say that and you acknowledge them, the mana that surrounds us is overwhelming, and they mahalo you for acknowledging that, because a lot of times in this day and age, people look at you for face value and say, oh, what's this guy trying to prove? What's he trying to make for himself? And the reality is that a lot of times I didn't start this for myself or anything. It was because of the kupuna that were here before us and the things that they instilled in us as youngsters growing up. Mm-hmm. I remember cleaning the Makua cemetery, and some of the uncles were dancing to some good music, and I witnessed Grandma Wilhelmina Bailey whacking them with a cane and span. She was old and frail at that time, and me and my brothers were just tripping out, like, Auntie's over here whacking these grown men with the cane, but she told them, you don't do that on this land. You respect this land. And from that point forward, I was like, that memory will always stick in my head, because it was a different level of respect that they had. It was like things that we look at now as being okay, which at time, evolution happens, but just learning and keeping that respect and trying to walk with that and try to pass it on to the next generation if you can.
Yeah, respecting the Aina and respecting the ancestors that are here in the Aina still.
Definitely still here.
Yeah, and Micah, that's where we have to leave it. Mahalo for being on
thank you, folks.
This
I
has
appreciate
been
you
great
guys
for showing us around, giving us the history of this place. Please, you guys at Protectors of Paradise, please keep doing what you're doing. You know, it's easy for me to say no matter how much trash is offloaded here, please keep picking it up. I know it's very hard work, but I know that you know the value of it because you've educated me about that today and also our viewers. So thank you very much.
Thank you folks for being here and spreading the word.
Our
and
pleasure.
Thank you to everyone out there for all that they do and for their support as well.
Yep.
So mahalo.
Yep. And mahalo to our viewers for joining Micah and me here today. Remember, you can watch us on the web 24/7 on voicesoftruthtv.com, and you can like Voices of Truth One-on-One with Hawaii's Future on Facebook. I'm Ahuʻs Cardwell for the Koani Foundation, along with Micah here, and until next time, ahui ho!
Ahui ho.